Governor Moore, thank you so much for taking time to focus on bipartisanship. You've got 1,000 things you're working on. Why is bipartisanship one of those important topics?
Well, it's interesting. I think in many ways, bipartisanship is actually at the root of everything that we're working on. There is not a single idea that I approach and then I say, wow, that's a really good Democratic idea. Or there's not an idea that I say, wow, that's a bad idea because it's a Republican idea. It's a good idea or it's a bad idea. And I think that there is no party that has the market cornered on good ideas. No party has the market cornered on bad ideas. And I don't think that that's how people actually live. They just want you to be able to focus on things that matter to them and their lives. Are you making life more affordable? Are you actually making their life are you making them more safe? The things that matter to them don't have a partisan tint to it. And that's how I just try to lead.
That's great. And we agree. And that's why we've trained over 1,000 people to have skills so they're equipped to know how to deal with conflict. Do you find that people know how to do it, or is this the instinct to fight take over?
It's a really good question. Where I feel like for me and my background, it was something that I came up in, right? This idea that where I didn't come up in a partisan background. My background is I was sent to a military school when I was 13 years old. I joined the Army when I was 17 years old, led soldiers in combat, then worked in both the nonprofit and in the private sector, worked in finance. So I've always come up in environments that have been bipartisan by nature and by where the idea of working together was a foundation of success. We could never go and accomplish a mission if we were divided as a unit. Right? I could never go and close a deal when I was working in business if my team had completely different thoughts and ideologies. Everybody had to be clear, what's the mission? What are we trying to accomplish? And what do we need to do to actually make it happen? And so I think that it's one of the reasons that I'm such a big proponent for service. It's one of the reasons that we made Maryland the first state in the country that now has a service year option for all of our high school graduates, is because I do believe that in this time of this political divisiveness and political vitriol, where the mood is to fight on everything, that service will save us. Because service oftentimes is the thing that actually brings us together and gives us that unified mission. And so that's why I really believe that as a country, we need to get back to those roots of service.
That's fantastic. We've recently been exposed to a young woman in a small town who's become a drug addict and has recovered and is in recovery. And she talked about how there's just nothing to do. And service is a great way to get young people engaged in their communities and change the focus. So you're really right on target. Now, other states have expressed an interest in service, is that right? Talk about that.
Both Democratic and Republican states, which was really exciting because it goes back to the idea that no party has the market cornered on good ideas. And so whether speaking with people like my friend Governor Cox, speaking with my friend Governor Hochul, speaking with my friend Governor Meyer, and seeing how whether it's Utah, New York, Delaware, et cetera, California, are all now looking at ways they can incorporate this into their work, their budget, their ethos. It really does matter, because when we say that I want Maryland to be the state that serves, it's great that we also know we're not alone in that work and in that journey.
Yeah, and the task is truly a national problem.
100%.
This past year, when it's been about 15 months since you and Governor Moore accepted our invitation to talk with each other, and you did a great job of modeling what two people who disagree on almost everything and how they can respect each other, listen to each other, and so on. But this year has been a tremendously fractious year politically. Has that caused you to have to do anything extra to maintain a friendship, to not get caught up in the partisanship and the negativity?
It hasn't been more challenging to remain friends with individuals. Because I think that, for the people who were real friends in the first place, that this was never something that they led with. I think that what it's done is there's certain people who have, shown colors that have been different than what you'd seen before. And that's disappointing, because, I always know that, and I think about it where when I first decided to run for governor, I remember saying to our team that I have no problem spending all day introducing myself to people who don't know me. But I won't spend a second of the day reintroducing myself to people who do know me. The entire point of that was basically saying that I want to make sure that I am who I am and I stay consistent no matter who I am. And I think when we are watching people who have changed their colors or changed their stripes, simply because we have a new president, simply because a new administration comes on board, simply because you have a new party in there, and you watch how they completely change, that is disappointing. But I think the reality is that they were never who they said they were in the first place. The ones who I've been really inspired by is the people who, again, people like Governor Cox, who we might not agree on issues politically. We might not agree on X issue or Y issue, but he's still a friend. He's still someone who I go and I'll call and he'll call me and check on him, check on the family. That if there's an idea we're working on, he's still one of the first governors that I'll call up and say, hey, what do you think about this?
You see that going on with other governors? Or the
you
two of you are just unique?
Yeah, no, I think you do. And I think it's one of the nice things about governors is that at the end of the day, whether I'm talking about Governor Cox in Utah or Governor Stitt in Oklahoma or Governor Murphy in New Jersey, right? Everybody just wants what's best for their people. And everyone's just fighting on behalf of the people they represent, the same way where you're never going to get me to stop fighting for the people of Maryland, ever, right? And I will fight anybody if it means the protection of the people of Maryland. And so I think that that's one of the great things about governors is that you know where a governor stands on just asking the simple question, what's the impact to people of their state? And as long as you know that that's going to be the consistent thesis and the consistent landing for the governor, then I say that that's a person who is consistent in who they are and where their values stand.
Politics brings out negativity. It brings out personal attacks. You're experiencing that. How do you handle it, and what advice do you have for other people?
I think about it in context where first knowing my background is I'm a soldier. That's how I was trained, and so there isn't an attack that's coming that can make me flinch at this point. I've seen tough attacks before, but I think I also try to live by a larger idea of don't let things that don't matter too much matter too much. Sometimes I think people can get so wrapped up in what this person said on Twitter or what it's like, guys, ignore it. It doesn't matter. They don't matter. And so they stay focused on why you got into this in the first place.
Doesn't that apply to friendships and neighbors and people who are in the same church and can't talk to each other because they're in a different, who they support for president or whatever?
Yeah, and it's sad, right? It's sad that there is this larger polarization that does exist, where you'll walk into certain areas and before they even know anything about you, the first thing you know is he a Democrat, is he a Republican, and there it's like immediately people feel like I have already pinned this person which can be very frustrating.
In your ideal world, what would you like to see happen to bring about a change in the political climate in America?
In an ideal world, I think how we're communicating should matter. And frankly, in many ways, the people who are in charge of the tools in which we are communicating need to take a greater level of responsibility. Where I feel like if people are going to process news and information in a different way than we have before, where people are processing news in and I put news in quotes, and in shorter, oftentimes entertaining and not informative, oftentimes fiction-based and not fact-based. And that is helping to shape our larger consciousness about how we view each other, about who the enemy is, about how we treat each other, about what's okay and what's tolerable and what's not. I wish people had more concern about how we're expressing our beliefs, values, agreements, disagreements. And I wish the people who were responsible for many of those platforms and tools, I wish they took a greater level of responsibility for either the type of understanding they're introducing or the type of poison and venom that they're allowing to enter into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. We at the Bipartisan program believe that good behavior is contagious, just like bad behavior and negativity is contagious. We're so impressed that you convey a positive, and so we're happy to present you to the nation as a model and as an example with you and on your own behavior and conduct, and with Governor Cox. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
It's such an honor. It really is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.